Sometimes the only way to find peace is to give all your attention to the very thing that's causing all of your chaos, right?
Welcome back to Fishing Without Bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations, where we're going to continue our conversation with our delightful, energetic, imaginative, creative guest, Santina Grace. So we talked about anchoring thoughts before. We talked about memories, and one of the most profound memories of my life was when I was in a psychiatric hospital. For some reason, I'd chosen to be a good idea to take my life. Other people thought differently. So I ended up in a psychiatric hospital, and one day I was called up to the head shed. I was called up to see the psychiatrist. Well, I had many encounters with psychiatrists in my life. So when I sat down with him, apparently my roommate had thought I was disturbed. Now, keep in mind that we weren't roommates at the Holiday Inn, okay? We were in a psychiatric hospital. So I was sitting there. It was the shortest interview I ever had with a psychiatrist ever. And he looked at me, and this is back in the days, and the person was there taking notes, and there was no recordings, anything like that. And he said, Mr. Ellermeyer, I understand you pray. And I said, I knew a little bit about the 12-step world. I said, yeah, I'd like to think I do. And he's telling me, Jim, what is prayer? And I said, I believe it's talking to the divine, talking to the creator, talking to the universe. And he goes, oh, you talk to, he used the word. He said, oh, so you talk to God, do you? And I said, yeah, and I kind of knew where this was going. And he said, well, Jim, does God talk to you? And I said, well, whatever you think of God, I said, I'd like to think so. And then he asked me the question. He said, do you hear God talk to you? And by then I was upset, and I said, yeah, of course I do, don't you? And I saw him write psychotic at the bottom of the form, and he dismissed me. So I'm walking down the hall, and I'm thinking to myself, well, buddy, you just breathed your last breath of fresh air. You're punched your ticket to Mayview. It was a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It was somebody burned it down decades ago.
Yep.
Okay.
But my family used that a lot as a threatening.
Oh.
They'd say, we're going to send you to Mayview, even though it wasn't even there.
Yeah, somebody burned it down. Yeah. So I'm thinking, so I'm sitting in a psychiatric hospital, and I'm thinking, well, I got to talk to somebody sane. There wasn't a sane person there. Not patients, not psychiatrists, not aides, not nurses, no one. So I'm sitting there in Greensburg, and I wasn't a Catholic. I'm a recovering Catholic, although a lot of the stuff's still wonderfully and good. So I said, I got to talk to somebody sane. So I called one of the nurses, and I said, would you call the DOS? He said, I want to talk to a priest. Yeah. So nothing happens by mistake, nothing. Okay, so this priest's name was Father Raphael. He must have been waiting on the phone. He was there in 20 minutes. He sat down with me, and he listened to me, and he spoke to me. And at the end, he put his hand on my shoulder, and he says, Jim, so it's very emotional for me. Okay. He says to me, he's there, Jim, God talks to everybody. Very few people listen.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of the most profound moments of my life.
I'm sure.
I started listening.
Yeah.
I started listening.
Right. It's so important.
And then he suggested to me never talk to the creator, talk about the creator, the divine, or a higher power with psychiatrists again.
That's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean.
That was a turning point in my life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, and truly it's changed the way that you lived your life, right? Like now you're really great at listening. I know you are because of what you do here. You listen to everything that everybody says, and you ask more because you're curious and you want to learn more and you want to hear more.
That's because what everybody says is important.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story. It needs to be told and it needs to be heard.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. I went to a cemetery tour, like in October. And my version of a cemetery tour and other people's, I'm genuinely interested in history and historic events. And like you said, people's life stories. And I was thinking about technology, and I'm like, wouldn't that be so cool if in the future gravestones or whatever had like a QR code, and you could see pictures and moments of that person's life, and you won't fully understand, but you'll get a glimpse in. And I just feel that's so interesting. And my experience during this cemetery tour that I was on, it was actually the West Newton Cemetery. It's one of the second oldest in Pittsburgh. The oldest is the Allegheny Cemetery in Lawrenceville. But when I go to cemeteries, I connect with the spirits there too. So it's a different thing for me. So this person is telling us about, oh, this person buried here. They were I think they it was an older woman, and she decided to commit suicide. But there was an article written up, and it said a thoughtful suicide. So this woman was older, and she had tied a rope around her neck and then drowned herself in the river, but connected that rope to a tree so that her family would find her. And the guy who was giving the tour was like, "Why? I wonder why this woman would decide to do that." And so I just asked her, and I was like, "Why'd you do that? What's up with that?" And the thing that I got back was that she was in an immense amount of physical pain. I feel that she was potentially suffering from some sort of a cancer that they wouldn't have understood or known how to treat or do anything with. And she basically said to me, I knew it was my time to go visit the good Lord, and I wanted to do it with dignity, and I wanted my family to be able to give me a proper burial. That's what, like, she said all this stuff. And so it was really interesting to get that as a perspective. And then it was kind of cool too to go to other graves and have see the people in my mind's eye and spirit, and then have the person validate that for me. Because I remember going to one particular, it was a soldier. He was a soldier in, I think, World War II. And I saw him in my mind's eye, and the first thing I thought is, boy, is he handsome. And the person giving the tour said, he was often described by people as handsome. And I was like, that's right. So I don't know. I just think you're right. Everybody's got a story. And like to honor the people who've come before us and to learn what their stories are, it's worthwhile too.
What you're saying is that first person, the woman that you're talking about, she wanted to give her family some closure.
She did. She was, and I think she was concerned about kind of like making sure that everything was done properly. That was important to her. That she got her, she had her church funeral and buried properly, and she didn't want it to be a mystery, an unsolved mystery. The only mystery, I think, was that she didn't communicate why. There was never a letter or anything like that. But who knows if she told her family? I didn't ask, but
We don't know.
yeah.
And there's so many things we don't need to know.
That's true. It's true, but sometimes it's interesting to inquire.
Oh, absolutely. How often do you go through cemeteries?
Not really all that often, because I don't need to be in a cemetery to connect with people. So, but when I'm there, it's interesting to do it because the person who was giving the tour was saying that there was 23,000 people there. Yeah. But you want to know the truth? I'd rather be in a cemetery than be in a hospital, because hospitals have such chaotic energy in there that I can't really
I
be
can't
in.
imagine.
Yeah, as somebody who's very empathic and feeling a lot of energy and emotions, it's too much of a range of emotions in one space. There's no peace there. It's just total devastation, total joy. It's like every range of what you could possibly feel all in one building.
How do you stop from getting overwhelmed?
I breathe. I do that exact exercise that I just talked about. I just kind of sit there, I ground my energy into the floor, and I just go, and I don't want to breathe into the mic, but I go, hold it, and then let go in that moment. Because I become that etch a sketch that I talked about. I start connecting with all of that static that I don't need to. And that's the way that I clear my energy flow. It doesn't always work. Doesn't, like, sometimes I'll go home and I'll need to do more than that. I'll need to actually just sit with myself and investigate what I felt and what I connected to and that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just talking about it with somebody else gets it out.
Do you do any journaling, Santina?
I used to. I'm not so much of a journaler now. I used to have a lot of like nights that sleepless nights, let's say. with the thoughts. And so what I would do is not dream journal, but just journal and get the thoughts out of me. One of the best, I took like a class, it was at my local library once, and literally this woman taught us how to quiet our mind by literally dictating what the mind was saying to us. And it was a really interesting exercise because if we were to actually give our full attention to that noise, to that constant chatter in our head, and like give it that much attention that we're like, all right, go ahead, I'm taking notes, and truly write those notes down, if you were to go back and try to read that, you're like, "What is happening here?" You're not meant to read it. So the practice is you dictate the thoughts that are in your mind, and then you rip it up into a million pieces and you toss it. Because essentially it's like purging, it's purging all of that I don't know how else to call it other than like the gerbil, the hamster on the wheel that is your mind of like, did I do this? Da da da. What about this? Should I have done that? It's that chatter.
So you're talking about achieving some cognitive clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity.
Yeah, or like if you're somebody who you can't just sit and quiet your mind, or you can't just sit and focus on something to truly give yourself a moment of peace, sometimes the only way to find peace is to give all your attention to the very thing that's causing all of your chaos, right?
Oh, hi, Jim Ellermeyer back again from Fishing Without Bait. And as we offer and express transparency, this is a shameless plug for a book that we are selling. This is a 365-day calendar where we have a Zen type of picture to draw with a caption, and then we ask some thoughtful questions that people can answer, such as, what are your general thoughts about the quote? What is the morning thought in the morning? What is your evening thought? And what will you do tomorrow to spread kindness? Okay? And the beauty of this is that it's not numbered. You can pick any page out. It's not numbered. You can pick any day out and pick any quote out you want, or not. So what we're doing, we're asking people to use this as some type of a mindfulness activity to start their day. When we start our day, not trying to race through the day or with anxiety, but rather maybe some introspective self-talk, some internal validation. And what we're doing here is this. Also, what we'd like to do, we're going to be offering some Patreon material, maybe some behind the themes things, or some of the podcasts that we've done where we take a deeper dive, and we'd like to get your thoughts on that. What would you like to see? Are there any podcasts that we've done where you would like us to do a deeper dive? So you can please contact the show, and we'd be glad to explore that. And as always, we're looking for stories of recovery. Everybody's in recovery from something. We like to know how you got here from there. And please be good to yourself. And yes, this is a shameless plug. Well, we do an exercise similar to that where we help people externalize those thoughts, meaning we take them out of here, out of that anxiety, fear-based, amygdala-based thinking, to externalize them on a whiteboard or out in front of you, so you can transfer that thought to your prefrontal cortex, which is the logic center of your mind. We call that a wise mind. So we're able to externalize and look at these thoughts with a wise mind rather than with a fear-based, anxiety-based mind.
Yeah. I'm just talking about simply getting the noise out and disposing of it.
There's so much noise.
Because sometimes it's not really worthwhile to hold on to. And when I journaled, that was one of the things that I realized. I was literally capturing the noise. And I'm like, what is this for? So I was like, nah, I'm not going to give this the time of day. So for me, journaling only really worked for that,
Well, we call that dropping the rock.
Yeah.
Here's the recovery boat. Get in. You're too heavy. You'll capsize the boat. Drop the rock. And most people are unable to drop the rock.
Yeah.
But they're hanging on to.
Yeah.
Letting it go.
Yeah, that's a bummer when you got to hold on to that rock.
Well, we've talked about this many times on this program also, but it's always good, and it's an exercise I do with people. I ask them how monkeys are caught, trapped, and I don't suggest anybody go out and trap monkeys. But what's done is a mesh cage is built, and in one side of the cage there's a hole in there, big enough for the monkey to get their hand in. So inside of the cage is some type of thing the monkey would want, some food, shiny thing, whatever, and they grasp onto that and they try to pull their hand out, and they're stuck, but they won't let it go. And quite often what I'll do is I'll have a larger mason jar, and I'll have somebody stick their hand in and pull it back out. And then I'll have some stones, and I'll say, okay, what's some of the things you're thinking about? Maybe jealousy, anxiety, depression, envy, all of these things. And I'll drop a rock in it, and then I'll have them stick their hand in and hold on to the rocks. And I'll say, try to remove your hand. They can't. You can't unless you drop those rocks, and dropping those rocks is a choice.
Yeah.
And we've talked before, if you understand and are willing to accept the consequences, everything in your life's a choice, and on that day you'll be free.
That's true. Very true. Very true. And you're right. With every choice, you can find freedom. Every choice. The tiniest little choices that we don't even think about making. There's just freedom in all of it.
That woman that you were talking about that you connected with, she made a choice.
She made a choice. And it was one where she felt it benefited herself, and she was able to feel like that was the best way she could handle it for her family.
And who's to judge whether that was a sin?
Right. Yeah, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole, because for me, yeah, I feel like we cannot sit there and judge other people's experiences unless we ourselves have lived through them. Right? That's in that same book that we're talking about here. So, I just think we have to have compassion. We have to have an open mind, just like what you said. And we have to be willing to say, look, I didn't tread that path. That person did. They made that choice. That was what they felt was right. It's not for us to judge.
Well, one of the most difficult and challenging things for a therapist to help people to do is take a non-judgmental stance.
Yeah.
Take a non-judgmental stance. And the cemeteries, I think I've mentioned to you this before, I think one of the most beautiful cemetery I could see was one where every epitaph says no regrets.
No regrets. Yeah, that's
right. That's
right.
what I wish people, no regrets. I always tell people, I want you to have no regrets in your life. None.
Yeah, that's great.
Should I quit this job? Should I not? Well, if you quit, will you regret it? Well, yes. Well, then there's your answer.
Right. That's exactly right. It's a good choice point litmus test. Would you regret the choice? I love that, because you can, that makes it real easy for people who are having an indecisive moment.
Should I leave my partner? Will you regret it if you don't?
Right.
And if they say yes, then I say, we don't need to discuss this anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
Making a choice. Mm-hmm. We talked earlier about life and choice points. You're the master of choice points.
Mm-hmm.
Master. At the end of every podcast, we offer a free prescription that you can fill anywhere. And that's fruits, nuts, and vegetables. And unplug your television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another. If we're all not the divine's children, then none of us are. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste, my friends.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.